Hello everybody, welcome to Documentary Film Production Masterclass Week 2. My name is Tom Sternad and thanks for joining us. Just wanted to let everyone know there's been a little bit of delay. I'm getting back to everyone with emails, but thanks for emailing me questions, and I'm going to be replying to all of those in the next couple of days. So just apologies for a little bit of delay on my part, but please keep those questions coming, and if you have your outline for the documentary that you worked on from last week to this week, please send that to me as well. If you want any advice, input on thoughts on the documentary that you're looking to do, even just concepts and how to approach people, or how to make sure you have everything secured properly, how to do your pre-production. Really, really important. So there's lots to consider. Documentaries are definitely a complex film endeavor, and we want to take you through that, and I want to try to present it as in pieces, and if you can approach it that way, from pre-production to multiple parts of production, you can kind of take something that might look really mammoth in size and break it down into its bare components, and then really have a fun experience doing it. It should, and practice makes perfect. So that's, I think, the real key thing, takeaway here is that, we want to present this so that you can go and make some short documentaries, really practice that craft, try things out. And that's really important. I'm here to present some of the best practices of how to do these documentary films, and but at the same time, through experimentation, you might come up with some really totally different, radical ideas of doing documentary films. And that's the real exciting part, is really transforming the genre and transitioning into different areas with it. So anyway, so it's really great to continue this discussion. So I want to thank all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and then we have our library partners: Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and Wasaga Beach Public Library. Now, what's really important, I always, I keep stressing this and mention this, but if you're a member of any of the libraries there, Blue Mountains and Wasaga Beach Public Library, you can access the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K camera that we feature specifically in this workshop. You can also access Canon 6D photo cameras that can be used for documentary filming in video mode through all these library partners as well. So if you have any questions about that, you can email me. My email is, again, tom@tbmcs.ca. So just send me an email and say, hey, I want to learn more about the cameras. Otherwise, you visit our website, tbmcs.ca, and you will find the proficiency test. It's a simple proficiency test to go through the basics, and then once you show that you understand that, and a lot of just the safe and proper care of the camera is a big part of it, and then you have access to it, and it's really that simple. We have a ton of videos. Please do check out our YouTube channel. We post all the instructional videos on the equipment, and a lot of these webinars are posted on our YouTube channel as well, so you can see them there. So there's a lot of resources on specifically sound recording, to more camera and cinematography things, and so on. So today we have a really good packed day. You can join us right after this at 11 o'clock. We have advanced cinematography. And in the afternoon, the parallel component of this is we have documentary film editing. So if you're working on your documentary, you want to know more about the editing part, we have that in the afternoon. So that's at 2 p.m. Same time. So you can take this morning, and then we'll see you in the afternoon for the editing part. If you can't make it, don't worry, just sign up for it, and you can get access to all the replays. So these links that you're watching on directly, you can rewatch and see the videos from there. So that's really the cool part. Okay, so what are we going to look at today? So today we're going to look at deciding the style for the interview. I think that's really important. Is like, how are you going to film your interviews? And there's a lot of choices to be made, and we'll look at these, and we'll have something to think about. And I don't necessarily have answers, but it's a real it's important to kind of break down and think about why are you doing things in a certain way. Sometimes people just do things, but we really want to try and always focus on the why. Why are you filming at this angle? Why is your subject looking at the camera? Why are they not looking at the camera? All this kind of stuff. What does that mean? And there's a lot of psychology in this, and just things to think about. And I think one of the best things you can always take away is that if you have favorite documentary films, I encourage you to watch those. See what other filmmakers and some of your other favorite films, it could even be narrative films, but if you watch some other documentary films, you can then see what are other filmmakers doing in the world of documentary. How are they making their interviews unique? How does it help tell the story? And also be critical. Maybe you don't like how they're doing an interview, and then you can remember that and say, I really don't like that style. I don't think it fit the film. Be critical. We're not saying that everything's perfect. It's important to look at things and say, oh, how many angles? Or maybe there's too many angles, weird angles. Maybe it's not making sense, right? And that's the whole thing. And that's, I think, the overriding thing here with the digital arts and with the digital cinema and documentaries is, always that concept. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So yes, you can shoot everything in slow motion, but what does that mean? And does that make sense? And does your interview, if you're going to have a lot of cutaways in slow motion, why? Right? So again, just because the camera can do slow motion doesn't mean you should do slow motion. Doesn't make sense for the story. So that's similarly to the angles and so on. Just because you can put a tripod really low on the ground, what does that mean? And what is that telling us for the story that you're dealing with, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Then we're going to look at best practices for selecting the interview area. And we're here, I'm in my editing studio here, broadcasting live. And it's not necessarily the best location for an interview area, but I can control the sound, I can control lighting, and I can control it to my background. So that's some of those best practices we'll look at. And that's a great way to look at it. We'll also consider exteriors. And that's a great use of a space right now, is to do things in the exterior if you can, especially with safety protocols and things. If you're outside, it's a lot of a safer environment, and you can have the whole exterior is your studio. So a large field or a park can be quite nice, but we get into some of the sound things. So we'll look at subject pre-lighting as well. How do you figure out pre-lighting? I should say it also pre-composition, pre-camera setup. You want to have everything ready to go so that your subject isn't waiting around. You don't want someone waiting around for half an hour as you prepare your camera and lights and things. And sometimes it happens and you need to do that, but try to still be quick. And that's sometimes when you have to move a little bit faster and sometimes even cut corners a little bit in terms of what your visual style is, or maybe you won't get to do that lighting for those extra 15 minutes. So sometimes you have to go faster, or also just explain to the person that you need a little bit of time to set up. Sometimes the person comes early and you can just politely explain to them that they've come a bit earlier and you need to have a little bit more time to set things up. So that's, I think, important. 3-point lighting. So the next thing, we have a few webinars and videos about 3-point lighting already out there on our YouTube channel, but we're going to review that as well. So just the 3 points, what that means, and the basic ideas behind them, and then the sound recording into the camera, directly into camera. What does that mean and how does that work? And the types of microphones that you can access through our library partners. So again, a lot of equipment showcasing what you can just get right from our libraries. And that's what we're trying to highlight, is that, hey, you can take this stuff out and go and make the documentary films yourself with that equipment. Okay, so deciding the style. So before filming, you have to think about a few questions that you have to consider, because the style and the look, that whole idea of what is the style, what is the look, that might carry through the whole film. Like you might have, we're doing a short documentary for this masterclass, suggesting just one main interview, one supporting interview, or maybe just one interview. But let's say you have 80 interviews. It's important to figure out what is the style, what is the look, so you can carry it through the entire film. And that's really, really important, because if you decide that the look is going to be really bright and everything's going to be outside, you need to carry that through, because it would be really awkward then if all of a sudden you'd be watching the film and then all of a sudden an interview is really dark and inside. That might be important for the story, but if it's not helping the story, it could just be something because, okay, that interview had to be inside and I didn't have enough lights. That affects your style and that affects your overall film. So always consider, how do you maintain that consistency in your storytelling? And when you watch a film that has a really consistent style and look, it's quite beautiful to see. And it really is smooth viewing experience. It can engage you. You can stay, nothing's kind of off-putting or seems off when you watch it. And that can really stop you from continuing a film if you're like, this, it takes you out of that moment. You want to be totally consumed by the film and watching it. And that's a consistent visual style. It goes a long way to allow that to happen. So that's just things to think about. So here's some of the questions to consider. Will the subject be sitting or standing? I know it seems kind of weird, but that's the whole idea. If someone's sitting, it's one thing. And if someone's standing, it's kind of another thing. So if they're standing, why are they standing? What does it mean? And if they're sitting, consider how they're sitting, what they're sitting in. Because all of a sudden, that chair, if they're in front of a desk, if they're, sitting at a bar, all these things mean different things. Where are they sitting? So that location idea. So standing tends to be kind of nice. It can be a little bit faster because, having a chair, a desk or a table and all this kind of stuff can be hard to, there can be reflections, it can be hard for lighting and so on. Sometimes just getting someone to stand, even if they're, in an office or at their desk, if you just get them to stand, they kind of move away from that desk, and then you can kind of stand them anywhere. Big chairs can be limiting and you might not be able to move them anywhere. So, there's a lot of practical and creative reasons for sitting or standing. And, standing kind of puts people at a, it's almost like they're in a kind of an equal, like you're standing with them, talking outside somewhere, learning something from them. Sometimes if they're sitting, it can be a little more clinical in a way, like you're kind of sitting in this doctor's office. So psychologically, that's some of those things that I like to always consider is what works better, sitting or standing. And again, the sitting can also be, in terms of like a real practical sense, how long will the interview be? So, we do these workshops, about an hour. So I tend to sit and then present and do it like that. So that's important because it's a long duration. If you're thinking your interview might be really long, maybe an hour, multiple hours, really in-depth question, it's maybe nice to have the person sit or have a high chair. If you're doing something faster, 10, 15-minute interview, standing can be really easy to achieve. So that's another thing practically. If it's going to be a really long interview, then you might really want to consider the sit approach. But, again, you got to think about what are they sitting in and how does it look and so on. Now, will the angle be used? Will that angle of the camera be used to add meaning? So low, normal, high. So you want to always think about, if you're normal, we're pretty much kind of an equal, hey, I'm like eye level, talking to you, we're at a normal thing. Now, if you're looking under me, like a low angle, you're kind of looking, the audience is looking up to the person. So they're a little bit more superior, right? So that low angle makes the subject a little bit more superior with the audience being inferior. Then higher angle, like if you're looking down, higher angle looking down, I start to look inferior and maybe show weakness. So, think again, normal, low angle, and a high angle. And it really changes the perspectives. I'm just trying to do a quick kind of demo of what that means. But those angles are really important to consider. High, low, or normal, like eye level, straight on. So normal is technically, generally the best practice of what to do if you're not trying to say anything. If you're doing like a low or high angle, think about why you're doing that. Because if it's low, again, you're making the person superior. If it's high, you're making them inferior. And that's a real psychological connotation of the angles. Another thing here, will the subject look off camera, which is traditional, or will the subject look into the camera, which is more personal or even a webinar style? So this is the whole idea. So if I'm usually traditionally would be looking off camera, I'm talking to someone here and I go, hello, my name is Thomas Jernad. I'm instructing a documentary workshop. I find it interesting to discuss documentary filmmaking, and it keeps going like that. So I'm like off camera, and you, the audience, are the fourth wall. So I'm never looking at you, but I'm looking off camera. That's a very traditional approach. Now, when I flip myself and look right at you, now it becomes personal. But in this world of video conferencing and webinar ideas, we start to really become more like a webinar. as well. So this is what you expect more of a YouTube video or, you know, personal kind of thing. So I'm talking to you, so I'm breaking that what's called the fourth wall. And now all of a sudden you're not really hiding at home. I'm looking at you. So it becomes really personal, really intimate. So think about that power. Most documentaries are gonna just have that off-camera look. So you, as the interviewer, me as the interviewee, well, I will be here, and then I'm just gonna look right next to the camera. So I'm not looking at the lens, I'm just looking right off. That is a traditional way. So just like this, like I'm looking right now. And I answer questions and you talk and so on, right? And that's one kind of framing. We can also frame it the other way where I look, you know, this way and then offset myself. Or I can be right looking at you. So think about the psychological approach between those two. Traditional, or are you going into the personal kind of webinar style? What will be the general shot size? Will this be, you know, consistent for the whole film? Will it be unique for each subject? So again, this is a very kind of traditional documentary shot size. I'm talking here, and you kind of have like, you know, shoulders up, like a medium close up. It could be further away, right? So I'm on a rolling chair, so I can be, you know, further away. We can have different kind of shot sizes. So think about what that means. If you have your camera and you want to kind of shoot one shot size, if you're not using a zoom lens or anything, and you want to kind of get one shot size, I would recommend getting maybe a little bit wider, because in editing, we could always zoom in a little bit and, you know, kind of punch in and do close-ups. Especially if you shoot in 4K, you have more resolution to be able to punch in, is the phrase. So think about your shot sizes and what that means, right? So that's overall deciding the style for your interview. Really, those 4 consideration points. So best practices for the interview area. So when choosing the interview area, consider the following. Does the space offer privacy and overall control? Or is the environment important? Important to the story, I should say, such as a busy factory in the background. So if it's key for you to show that busy factory in the background, that's great. But again, that's something that would require additional finessing to deal with, because all of a sudden you have a really busy factory, people are moving, it can be noisy, you're seeing other people, a lot of extra complexities. But if it's important to the story, sure. If it's not important, if it's just a distraction, maybe the person you're interviewing them about a book they just wrote, they just happen to be working at a factory, take them out of that factory, because it might not necessarily make sense, and make it a little bit easier. Or is there a way that you could have a busy background, like through a window, so you don't hear everything? So just think about that privacy and overall control, because if there's a lot of people coming and going, and you're having an intimate or very personal interview story, it can really ruin it, and the person might not feel comfortable speaking if there's a lot of commotion and people walking around. Now, secondly, does the space offer a quiet area for sound recording without a lot of background noise? So you want to make sure that it can be pretty quiet and you can record some decent sound without a lot of noise. And that's, again, crucial to the success of, recording a good interview, a quiet area for sound. And overall, does the background help further tell the story or represent the subject? So what's in the background? What do you see? If not, why not? Why is it totally different? So even thinking about, I'm talking about documentary filmmaking, you can see cameras in the background, lights and things like this. So it makes sense for what our interview would be if you're interviewing me, for example, about documentary filmmaking or as a filmmaker. So that kind of background makes sense. If I had flowers in the background, like a greenhouse, and I'm talking about how, filmmaking, documentary film is great, that doesn't make sense unless I'm making a film about flowers. Then you're putting me in the environment that I'm making the film about. That makes sense, right? But you can see the context of me just sitting in a greenhouse with flowers wouldn't make sense if I'm talking about documentary films, unless it has something to do with the film that maybe I'm just currently working on or that I recently worked on. So always think about that, what's in the background, because whatever you see is permanently there. If there's some sort of a weird painting or drawing or photo or something that makes no sense to the subject, you can't fix that later. Get rid of it, take it off the wall, or think about always your set design, and what is in your frame is forever. You can't fix that later. So that's why sometimes it might be that extra minute or two. Again, talk to your subject, make sure they're patient with you. Don't rush it. And just make sure that you're happy with what's in the background and your framing and all of these decisions and factors. Because same with the sound. If it's noisy, you can't redo the interview later. It's an interview. You can't say, okay, let's ask the questions again. We're gonna have you replace this. Documentaries really need to be recorded as, the sound needs to be as good as possible. As good as possible, again, is the key. So, if you're in some sort of a noisy environment or you're interviewing, let's say a first responder, like a paramedic, and the sirens and things, it's going to have to be part of it, that chaos, the sound, the sirens, loudness. But can you do the interview maybe somewhere else after? Maybe you're just having some as you go kind of moments or B-roll. So, can you separate that? Can you separate walk and talks? That can be another aspect of a style. If you're interviewing someone, but maybe they're talking about what they're doing at a certain spot. So if they're like, hey, I'm working in this factory and I go over the quality control of buttons that are being made at this factory. And you can walk with the person, they can explain things and kind of do that. And that can be used. Or can you just do the interview with them on their own after, right? So think about all these best practices of the last two things. So is the location going to work? And then, does the interview area help further tell your story? That's because this is what you have in a documentary is your interviews are key. Like that is the whole film. If, you don't have a great background or if it doesn't make sense, that could be really a problem for your storytelling, right? So think about that. Okay. And we did, okay, so pre-production, this is what we've already done. So, that would be the next thing. So you go back, think about your pre-production, think about these elements, decide the style, and now you can always put that into your short outline. So go back to this pre-production, the treatment, and put this information based on that. You might need to have extra equipment. You might need to, kind of jig around your pre-production area. So the next topic here, subject pre-lighting, is it's a good idea to pre-light prepare the interview before the subject arrives. And again, this could minimize the stress for the subject sitting in the hot seat under lights and in front of the camera, because that could be stressful to, have to sit in front of a camera under lights and get things going in that kind of manner, right? So, okay, let's get right into some of the camera setup. So I have like a basic scene. I have a couple garden gnomes that we're considering here, like for an interview. So one's sitting, one's standing. Right? And you can see it's not a big difference necessarily from, one to the other. But again, one's sitting, one's standing. So what exactly, that's what we have. So now, how do we come to this? So what I would do is, so you kind of see, here's like our whole setup. I'm just going to go over here on the side. So we have like a 3-point lighting setup. So I have one light over here, point 1. This would be what is my key light. So I have one of the newer LED lights that you can get from the library partners. So I have that. That light is the key light. So we have like a 45-degree angle to my subjects. Now there's two. There would only just be like the one, but I'm just showing you a sitting, standing concept, right? So we got that 45. Then I have another 45 degrees here. So point 1, this is what's called the fill light, right? So you want to have the key light is like kind of your main light, 45 degrees, it's the brightest. Then we have the fill light over here. It's at 50% of that light at another 45 degrees, and it just fills the like shadows on the face so they're not so harsh. And in the background, you see the big bright light up there, that's called the backlight or the rim light. And that's what shows up. So that is our 3-point lighting. So again, you want to be able to pre-light that with a stand-in, it's called, or, if you're working with a small crew, director and yourself, to pre-light that. Or you can even use things like this. Use like, bring in a garden gnome. You can then at least see the lights and how they're reflecting on that. But try to have, if you're working with another person or even yourself, try to like sit down, record, sit down, and then you can play it back. It takes just a second to hit record, sit down, see what it looks like when you play it back at the camera. And that's a really great way to, you know, kind of understand what the lighting works like. So let's kind of break this down again. So the 3-point lighting, really, it's not too complicated. It always sounds like it could be worse than it is. So let's just break it down. So what I'm going to do is turn off the fill. So now we just have one light. And then I'm going to also turn off the backlight here. Okay, so that's it. So this is what we start with, which is our key light. So this key light, and we have a little bit of stuff in the background. Again, there's a little bit of a existing, you know, part of the existing like lamp, the table lamp. So it's just part of the ambiance that's available in the room. I can have that off as well. But you can see just with the key light, it's not bad. But we're obviously having a lot of more shadows and you know, it gets a little bit harsh on the elves, right? So you can see again the sitting and standing. There's a big difference. And look at when we like zoom in, you know, the sitting and standing is a bit of a difference in terms of, you know, how we frame them, right? So right now they're looking off camera. So I have them, you know, kind of eye line looking off camera to over here, right? And that's kind of nice. So, you know, again, sitting, standing, differences in heights. So you got to think about where your camera. I've angled it normal just right for this guy standing. So it's right eye line for that guy. This guy's sitting. So I'd probably bring the camera down just a touch to match that kind of an eye line for the person sitting, right? So think about, I'd rather sit. Just realize that you might have to change your lighting and also the height of your tripod. So here it is with the fill. Look how much nicer that is, just with a little bit more fill light, less shadow, right? So again, just the on and off, right? On, right? And it just fills in the shadows. We can bring this up to, and it just fills in more. And then it's kind of equalizing the other one. And that's already pretty nice. We have a bit of background light. I'll just zoom out again, right? So if we kind of want that kind of waist shot, medium shot for the interview is really nice. And we can go from there. So that's a key and fill. Just 2 lights. Really quick setup, you know, 5-10 minutes. And then you're just always working on these kind of 45 type degree angles. And that way you're not shining stuff right into someone's eyes. And it's a lot more pleasant. So if they're talking to you as well, they don't have that super bright light shining right in their eyes. It's from the sides. So it's a lot more pleasant for the subject when you're doing these 45 degree type angles. You just want to have enough so that you don't have, you know, big shadowy eyes. You want to make sure you have just enough to hit into their eye sockets to make sure they're not too much shadow in there. So it's kind of how do you do the documentary setup. So that's those 2 lights. And then, you know, if you can add this backlight, it's kind of a bonus. Sometimes you don't have that much time in the documentary world to kind of get that other light in there. But here's with the backlight, you know, and you can see it's just separating around the shoulders here. It just fills in the shadow there, right? So it's kind of a nice fancy extra light to use to just separate the background and so that they're not just part of the wall. It really puts like a nice glow around them. That's your 3-point lighting. That's how fast we can go with documentaries. 1, 2, 3. We can do it, and you can see we can do it as little as 1. We can do it with just the key and fill, or we can do it with all 3. So that's what happens there. Okay, so that's pre-lighting. We get through that, and then we're ready to go. And that's not too bad at all. Next, so that's the 3-point lighting, right? So using that basis, you can be, you know, ready to interview with as little as 1 light and some existing like house lights, or you can use 2, or you can use 3. Obviously with the 1 key, there's a little more shadow. So you consider a fill light could be a window. You might not even need to use a necessarily light. It could just be a window, right? So versus think about on the right there, it could just be a window. right? So that's a really great way to do that. Okay, so so again, think about the concept of, where are you going to be? So you want to always think of putting yourself next to the camera. So this is the main camera here, right? So I'm usually going to place myself right next to the lens, right over here, or on the other side of the lens, one or the other. And then I can just be here, right? And you want the eye line to be a good eye line for your eyes. So you want to be eye line with the lens to keep that normal eye line with the subject. Eye line to the lens, and you're sitting right next to it here. And that's just a slight off camera. Now, if they're always going to ask that. Do I just look in the camera? Because we're used to that idea of with video conferencing, news reporting often looks right in the camera, right? So you have to decide that. No, you're going to talk to me on the side of the camera. Just look at me. And that way, it's a little bit easier to do the interview with someone who's looking right at you rather than at the camera. It's really nerve-wracking to just stare at a camera, I gotta say, even during the webinars, talking right into a camera versus just talking out there to the side, even if there's no one there. It's a lot easier than talking right at the camera. There's something about talking in the lens that makes it a little bit harder. So you could find that even though that might be your style and you want it that personal, think about what does it do to the subjects having to do that. Maybe that's going to be really hard for them, right? So just something to think about. Is that going to be fair for them? Can they handle that? Right? So here's that. They're looking to the side. I always suggest, framing them so they're, on that. We talked about rule of thirds in some of the past workshops. And again, I encourage you guys, you can watch, we have tons of cinematography workshops on framing and frame rates and format and everything. So here we just want to figure out, okay, documentary, what are the kind of the best practices? So here, let's just take, if we have the one subject and let's say he's standing here, right? We kind of look at rule of thirds and he's talking, I'm just off camera, really great eye line. Now, what would be kind of a weird thing is if, let's say I did something like this, it's still rule of thirds, but he's kind of, you're really heavy weighted on this side. There's nothing bad about it, but you want to make sure there's enough of a background there that's interesting because now there's going to be a lot. He's kind of looking off the whole frame. So the most traditional way of doing this kind of interview with the gnome would be he's just looking here off camera, right? So you take off camera, whoop, I'm right beside the lens and I sit right here and we talk, right? So similarly with the sitting subject, right? So he's just talking off camera and you go like that. And that would be that kind of rule of thirds idea. You can also say, hey, I'm going to have everyone center framed because maybe your background is really interesting here and over here, right? So that's an option too. They could be center off camera like that as well. Now, they can also be just looking right at the camera. So you can see again, look how quick, how personal that gets. The gnome is now just looking right at you. Gonna focus him, right? So he's looking right at you now, right? So that's really different than here to here. See, now he's staring right at you. It's a very different feeling and look. So that's kind of that idea of how to do that. So usually you'd center people if they're looking right at you. That's really more traditional to do that way. And same thing with this guy. So if he's looking right at you. And let me just zoom out a bit here. Right, so he's looking right at you, he's talking to you, and there we go. Right, so that's the idea there between the subjects and framing them, looking at the camera, looking off camera, and then the rule of thirds idea. Where are they in the frame? So let's go back to that kind of traditional idea. He's going to be right here, looking right next to the camera. Right. Now the last thing I want to talk about is, okay, how do we need to get good sound recording. So we've set up our shot. We're happy with it. Again, he has a really big pointy hat, so I'm kind of framing around that. We have our 3-point lighting happening, right? So that looks nice. We're really happy with that, right? So then the last thing we need to do is our sound recording into camera. So this is really crucial because you can't go back and do this some other way. We need to make sure. So the best practice is to record. I would say just record right into camera. It's the easiest way to get started and going. But you want to have microphones that are plugged directly into the camera, or you could use a digital sound recorder. So a double system is called, having a digital sound recorder. And then if you don't have a microphone, just consider using whatever your device is. So phone, tablet, DSLR, camera, having it really close to the subject. So, right now in this kind of a setup, we're about 2 meters. So we're practicing social distancing from a subject. So we're 2 meters from our gnome. But if you don't have a microphone that you can hook up, consider having the camera really close. But you can still stay 2 meters away. You just need to frame that up, and make sure everyone has a mask is the protocol. And then when you're ready to do your interview, that subject can take off the interview, you can stay 2 meters away, and you stay masked or behind a division surface. So you could be behind a window or plexiglass, something like that as well. So if you don't have a microphone or external microphone you can access, then that's maybe something you consider is you could just go into having the camera really close to get that built-in microphone as close as possible. So that's just the idea to consider there. Okay, so how do we plug in our microphones and so on? So we have the screen here. So I'm just going to spin this camera around so you can kind of see the inputs over here. Right. So what we have is the Blackmagic Pocket camera takes an XLR. So there's an XLR plug cable right here. Right, and what that does is you can, so what that basically does is you can then access the cable to get into the boom mic. So this XLR cable will run all the way, and it simply goes into here. So the camera comes with this mini XLR. I'm going to push and release it. And this is what it looks like. So it's a little mini XLR cable, and it goes right into here. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to show that basic setup. We have, again, really in-depth videos on sound recording. So if you want to use the external sound recording system or recorder, you can do that. So it plugs right in. We're plugged in. And then from there, it goes into what many of you will recognize as kind of that traditional large XLR cable. And in that cable, it looks like this. It's the 3-pin. That's going to run all the way to our boom mic. And our boom mic is all the way up there over the subject. And you can see it just kind of pointing in there. So the key with the boom mic is just to have it in a position that it's right over the mouth of the subject. The other thing we can then do is we have these great XLR or great lav microphones. So we do XLR. So these lav microphones, these are the Rode Wireless Go system, and they can be used to plug in directly to the camera. So they use just these 1/8-inch cables, which are these, and these ends go right into the camera. There's a microphone and there's a headphone jack there. So the top one's the microphone, bottom one's the headphones. So you plug into the microphone jack like so, and then you want to plug in your headphones so you can monitor the sound as well. So then you're just going to turn these on. There's just a power button on the side here, and it's going to power itself on. And here, let's spin this around. So what does this mean for our subject and the look? Right, so how do we get into some more of these settings here? Right, so we got that. That's good to go. I'm just going to move this camera up so we can get into the mic settings here. So I'm going to show you guys how to get all the mic settings turned on. So you simply go to the menu. Right, so you hit the menu button. Go over to audio, and we're going to tell it to go into the 3.5 millimeter. We're going to say use the mic, the XLR mic. That's what we need there. Okay, and that's going to be ready to run. And what I need to then do is we're going to need to run what's called phantom power. And phantom power is the power required to give it the energy to run the sound into it. So right now you can see that it's not showing up, nothing's showing up. So I have that XLR cable to the microphone and nothing's showing up. So I'm going to go to the next screen here, XLR phantom on. Now I go back and check, 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 check. You can now see it's picking up my sound from far away, but it would be louder if I'm closer to that area. Now on the channel 2, so we got 2 channels of audio in this Blackmagic 4K camera. We're going to put 3.5 millimeter. That is that little Rode wireless Go. And we can do either mono, left or right. And there we're going to say, okay, go to the mic. And we'll put it up to, let's say 75%. Okay, and so that's it for the audio settings. That's all we need to do. Then the next thing what I need to do is power these on. So you just press this button here for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It's powered. That's 1. And then that's the microphone. And then I need to power on the receiver that's coming into the camera. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I might not have any juice left in this one. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you're going to see it shows up, and then we got our levels. Check, check, check. And these things are great. So the little microphone is just built in right here. It's built in. Or you can plug in an external lav mic. So this can just be clipped on to the person. Right? So then let's get out of the menu here. So I'm just going to hit menu. Now let's go back to our subject. Right? So we got the boom mic is up here. And then we got this microphone pointing. He can just clip it onto his jacket and point at up to his mouth. Okay, so that would be what that would look like. Now, let me just kind of use this other camera here so I'm going to just kind of pan up and show you. So here he is. So down there is the microphone, and that's pointing up at him, and that could be right on his jacket. Then up here is the boom mic. Right, so it's attached, and I'm just using this could be someone holding a boom pole, or I have it on a boom stand. And you can see the mic is pointing directly down at the subject's mouth. So that works really well, right at the subject's mouth, and we're ready to go. And again, that other microphone is right down here. Right, and what we could do is if we want to, like I mentioned, we can also use, so this could be clipped in right on his jacket. We can also add in another microphone. So if you're using like what's called a lavalier mic, it would be like this. And then this would be pinned onto his shirt, like so. Again, always pointing at the mouth. So same with the top boom mic and this mic, they're always pointing towards the subject's mouth. Same with this one, right? Pointing right at the subject's mouth. If it's pointing this way, you're getting the off axis or off directional. So always point the microphones at the subject's mouth. And when we go back to the actual settings, check, 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 you can see the boom mic. It's all picking up there, 1, 2, and then we're ready to record. So we've done our lighting, we've added our sound, we have everything good to go. And our last step is to get comfortable ourselves and then start to ask the questions. So that's it for getting our interview ready for for filming your interviews. So your main subject with the camera. So you light, you sound, and you get you set up your sound, and then you get your make sure your background set up, choosing your angle, choosing your style, and so on. So now there's more on that. And what we're going to do is next week, we're going to talk more about the next part is the style of B-roll. There can be, are you going to do recreations? What kind of B-roll are you going to do? And we're going to continue the discussion on styles. But this is what you need to do is to, get, an interview recorded, right? So for our week 2 assignment that's due for next week is to go out and film your main subject and supporting subject interviews using these techniques and concepts. You can also try different things. You could look at the camera, not look at the camera, see what works for your story. This is the great time to experiment and consider these things. Consider the style, backgrounds, lighting. Do you use one light? Do you use windows? You can do this all with windows. You can do this exterior, right? So we're just showing the best practices of how to get something set up. And then, practice it. Do an interview, practice it, record it. And that's what we want to do. And that's our goal for next week. And then we're going to consider more the B-roll stuff. So that additional footage, what does that mean? How can we shoot that? What could the style be of that? Because that could be different than our interview style as well. So it's a little bit in pieces. So what's fun about this workshop is that we continue forward, but the segments can go in different parts, because sometimes we'll talk about B-roll and style, but that might affect your interview style as well. So we have to kind of go in pieces, but it's kind of non-linear. You might be, experimenting with your B-roll first as a documentary filmmaker, and that leads into how your interview will be shot, or your interview shots decide how your B-roll is shot, right? So there's all these concepts that can really creatively challenge and you as a filmmaker and change the overall documentary as well. So yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate everyone joining us. Please send me any questions you have to my email, tom@tbmcs.ca. I will be getting back to everyone. It's just been a busy week, so there's a bit of a backlog in my inbox, but I'll get back to everyone, and you'll be getting some feedback. And please do send me treatments. Once you shoot an interview, if you have a clip you want to share or the interview, I'm happy to give you feedback on that, technical as well, creative, anything about your documentary. Happy to do that. So thanks again for joining us, and we will be back again next Thursday, 10 a.m. for part 3 of the Documentary Film Production Masterclass. Thanks again. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.